anyway, so hope everybody is doing well, and yes, and Faith has an email address. Faith, MANAMDLOG@AOL.com. Yeah, AOL.com. And you can see that in the chat. Now, if you go to the controls for Zoom, you can see that Faith is talking in our chat, and you can actually click on chat. And you know what? I can unmute. I think I can unmute Faith. You can just jump in at any moment, but so this will be fine. I've looked over your presentation, Faith. I mean, you have a really it's going to be a really good one. It's going to be very interesting. And can you guys see the Southwest Manuscripters logo on the screen? I just want to make sure that you can. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and actually, let me switch a little bit. Okay, so yes, our guest speaker is Faith Beckerman Goldman, and we're going to get to some kind of bookkeeping, because I want to talk about Zoom. And now this is what I use with my students, which it means let's make sure we're ready. Okay, is your background appropriate? Let me see if my background is appropriate. Now, if I were to stop my video, my background just has a picture of me with a hat. Well, that's not really the background. That's a graphic that I use.
Photoshop.
Right. Yeah, like Photoshop. Yeah, and then but my real background is my kitchen. So it says you guys don't want to have any criminal activities or anything going on behind you, and I don't think that's happening. Is your profile picture professional? It's like the one with me in the hat. Don't forget to mute when you're not speaking. Okay, well that's that's to avoid background noise while our guest speaker is speaking. And I have some background noise around here sometimes. So the neighbors like to play their music really loud. So now the meeting, like I said, is going to be divided into 3 40-minute segments, unless Zoom decides to give us some free 2-hour time period for our meeting. So if we're going to be signed off by Zoom, I will warn you ahead of time. And then when you're signed off, just sign back in using the same Zoom meeting with the password Faith or passcode. And then I wanted to tell you about Zoom reactions. You don't have to use. Oh, go ahead, Faith.
When I zoomed in, there was no place to put the passcode. It just went directly in. But you got in. Maybe we don't need it. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't think we need it. Okay. Because you were all able to sign in, and we have Alan, we have Janice, and we have Barbara and Jay, and we have Van, Jeff, Ginger, Nelson. Hi, Nelson. That's one of my former students. Okay, we have Sharon. Hi, Sharon. I know you signed in earlier. You signed in, I think, yesterday, which is good. It's good to go, try it out, see how everything's working, see if you can sign in. Yeah, the thing with Zoom and passwords is kind of unusual. Oh, it's built into the login? Oh, yeah, that's Van is the real tech expert here. And you don't need the code if you click the direct link.
Right.
Everybody should click the link. Okay, well, anyway. Zoom reactions. Okay, well, so if you go into more in the menu and you go to reactions, you've got a thumbs up sign, you've got a little emoji there, like there's a love, there's a heart I just put next to my face. There's a hand raising. You don't have to raise your hand to ask a question, but we are going to have questions toward the end of the meeting today. And just, in other words, if we were to go to reactions and raise hand looks like that. See, I have kind of flesh colored hand, like sometimes it's yellow, and I can see whose hand is being raised. And you can tell I'm a teacher because I'm giving you all these little, do this, don't do that. And so this is the agenda. Now, I don't know if anyone, well, Faith, you have carte blanche to change our agenda because you're our guest, but I thought we would start with welcome, and then we have, let's see, Yeah, there you go. We'll draw a line over there. Welcome, Zoom check. We did that already. Title, and then my biography, which fortunately doesn't take very long. Who are the Southwest Manuscripters? That's just going to be a sentence with our mission statement. 3-minute reading. I'm going to read my wife Ann Tal's poem. I hope that's okay with you guys. It's not very long. She's too shy to read it herself, but interesting acceptances or rejections. We used to do that in our on-ground meetings. And then Faith's biography. I'll talk a little bit about Faith, and then we'll get into Faith's presentation. So number 10 is really going to be the focus of our meeting today. The Arts Alive video is one that I already had queued up. You know, with Faith, did a great video where she really gets into detail about her late husband and
my journey.
Your journey. Thank you. Yes, and I better put my hand down, huh? Okay. All right. I don't know why. Yeah. So I think when you have a reaction, it goes away except for the hand. But like with Faith, I'm going to give a kind of a heart there for Faith's comment about her journey. The Arts Alive video, Faith's film recommendations. I guess you don't mind, Faith, if I do that after your presentation, or?
Of course. Okay.
And then visuals and photos, where we have a great number of slides from Faith with really interesting visuals, and then Q&A at the end. And I think within the 2 hours, we'll have time for everything. But I do want to thank everybody for being here. And so that's great. We got Nelson, we got, some former students that I'm glad we're able to make it. I wish I got more, but, that's good. Nelson kind of represents the students here. So anyway, so this is Faith's title, which is Chutzpah, Finding the Missing Pieces of My Late Husband's Life in Shanghai. And Faith, maybe do you want to tell us about that word chutzpah?
If anybody knows Barbra Streisand, she's the one that penned this name. It's a Yiddish word meaning trying without borders and just pushing ahead and being positive and not giving up. But anything in Yiddish has more gump to it. But Barbra Streisand got that word into the Webster's Dictionary when she was first starting out in her
my
career.
God. I didn't know that.
It's got chutzpah, it's got it.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I didn't know that. That's great. And thank you to Lilia Wong, who said you don't need the code if you click the direct link. Yeah. And then Van said, yeah, that was me scribbling. There's a Scottish version. Okay. And Van will remain muted. Well, I hope you're doing well, Van. Looks like you're comfortable. Okay, so where is Jerry? Jerry is out of the state, and Jerry is our usual host, and she will be back next month. And I think we're having our party next month, and we usually have our summer party and picnic, but if we're doing it virtually, everybody has to bring virtual snacks, and I have my water. So who is this guy? Well, my name is Dan Lambert. Known to my students as Daniel Lambert, and known to the IRS as Daniel Lambert. But I have 3 classes three colleges that I work for, and I've been teaching 2 summer classes, and I've been teaching English since the year 2000, not continuously. I mean, I do sleep, but so maybe, that's why Jerry asked me to host, and I was really flattered to be asked. And my email address is proflambert23@gmail.com. My former email address was a lot shorter, but I found out, like, through the teachers union, that there were emails I would send through AOL and they would never receive the email. So I decided to quit AOL, and I went to Gmail, which is more reliable. Okay, so. And I'm a writer, and and that's what we're here for. We're here really to cultivate writing and to support writers. And Southwest Manuscripters has a long history of that. And And so the next slide is, who are the Southwest Manuscripters? And I don't know if you can see the small print down at the bottom, but this is our mission statement. I'm going to circle it. I'm just going to read it. Our mission statement, our goal is to encourage writers to express their talents and develop a unique writing voice by providing a nurturing environment in which to share their gifts. And probably one of the real experts on this is Van, who can really give us a lot of information from his, history project, where he has done a lot of research on the history of our club. And our club goes way back to the 1950s, or I'm sorry, 1949. We've had such luminaries as Rod Serling and Steve Allen as guests. So Faith is the latest in a long line of distinguished guests.
Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, Ray Bradbury, of course. Yeah, who came every year and until he passed away, and he's had a great influence on me and all of our members, I think. And he really kind of encouraged me to start using his Fahrenheit 451 in my classes, and to warn people about censorship and the other themes of Ray Bradbury. And so yeah, anyone else? Any band? Do you want to say anything about the Manuscripters or Janice or anyone? Because you can unmute yourself. Let's see. I mean, I'm not saying you have to, but you're not going to get.
Yeah, I think we should talk about the PV library. I don't know if we're going back, but I think we need to talk about many of our members have participated in the free anthology through the Palos Verdes Library. And if you want to check out or to read some of the ones produced over the last, I think it's 6 or 7 years. I've been in all the issues, and I know majority of, we have probably a good 10 of our members have participated over the years, and it's been a challenge. I like it when they've had pictures, but I know they had to just go to the words. And we have a wonderful library adult reference person, Debbie Ripley, and the PV library is just incredible. They have limited hours now, and I know for Sharon E. and I, we really like to be able to have access to the computers in the library. And they used to have incredible movies for free. So it's going to come back, and I would recommend that you sign up for the library to be aware of what's available. And nice to see you, Dan.
Yeah,
and,
nice to see you.
Anatole, I saw you run by and go up the ladder and go forth wherever you were going. And I'm really glad. I haven't been able to be that involved lately, but I'm really glad to be able to be here. This is my third literary Zoom for today. And Faith looks terrific.
Thank you.
Yes, and my wife and I give Janice credit for helping us find each other, because my wife and I were both, part of Janice's circle of friends, and that's how we met. So
literary friends. I listened to Anatole do a presentation about Vietnam and including poetry that I thought was really great.
Yeah,
and I love poetry too.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Janice. And I'm happy to be here. And so, all right, speaking of Antal, my wife, this is her and I last weekend. We were in, Modesto, California. And this sounds like a story, right? Where we stayed on our friend's walnut farm. And there we are with the Grapes of Wrath. Now, our friend has a working 1928 Ford truck. And so we got to ride in that truck. I rode in the back. I thought I was going to fall off. But, this was a thing that he rode in the parade. I mean, he drove it, our friend, and we got to be in the parade as, people from the 1930s. Now, maybe not people that came from Oklahoma or California, but maybe, we don't really have any experience with that kind of struggle, but anyway, there we are. So, Grapes of Wrath, quite an interesting novel. And I'm going to read her poem, and And let's see. So to do that, we're going to have to switch something on the screen. So we're back to seeing each other. Hi. Okay, everybody, 2 nuts. Yeah. Well, exactly. And you know, sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. So as they say. So let's
Keep
see
trying,
now.
Dan. Keep trying.
I know. That's how I failed the stand-up comedy school. So, all right. So let me type in the. You know, this is terrible because I had. Oh well. You know what? I have a bookmark for it. So let me go to my bookmarks. You probably can't see much on the screen right now, but yeah, I'm sure you can see the Palos Verdes magazine that this was published in. It's published online, and it's called Palos Verdes Pulse. And we're going to go to their website in a minute, hopefully. And I'll be honest and say that I'm biased because this is my wife, but hopefully you will like the poem. And yeah, palosverdespulse.com, exactly. Yes, thank you. And it's called Abalone Cove. Has anyone been to Abalone Cove?
Yes.
Yeah, really beautiful.
Janice had.
Yeah, yeah. And oh, there it is. Okay, wait, this is even better. All right, there it is. All right, can you guys see this on the screen? This is there's a picture of Antalya Abalone Cove.
No, we cannot see that.
Can't see it. That's all right. You will in a minute. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see it? All right. All right. Good. All right. So it's called Abalone Cove, and and then there's some pictures we took of Abalone Cove, and
Slow down. Thank you.
yeah. Abalone Cove. Who created thee? Heaven and earth interfere with each other, giving birth to a masterpiece of infinite love, landing in Rancho Palos Verdes. Ocean reaches to the horizon. Aqua water mingles with sapphire sky. It establishes harmonious cobalt, Catalina looming into view. White waves restlessly engulf little islands. Incommensurable gravel covers the beach. The tide is going down, unveils destroyed Babylon, collapsed under the sea, displaying the bottom of the grand palace. The staircase leads up to the king's hall, where the king held the court. Burgundy rocks creep up the cliff, stretching out over the throne. Visitors step on the slippery empire structure, rectangular stacked slabs, jet black like a far, sandy like bronze, hazel like emery. They are searching sea creatures, discovering aquatic habitat. They inhale fresh air of the ocean, admiring fascinating nature, enjoying the tranquility of the cove, welcoming the whisper of waves and winds, swimming into sun, sea, and sand. Adtal Buoy, Los Angeles, Sunday, April 5th, 2020. Okay. So yeah, and then this is her biography. Adtal Buoy is a poet and educator from Saigon, Vietnam. She lives in Inglewood, California with yours truly, her husband. She is a teacher at the UCLA University Village Child Care Center in Los Angeles. Okay, so you can go to, oh, thank you, Janet. Yeah, you're taking a picture. And anyone want to guess where this picture was taken, the picture of the author? Somebody asked me that. This is just a trivia question. It has nothing to do with our meeting today, really, except that it's actually Hearst Castle. That's a that's a statue from Hearst Castle. So anyway, let's get back to our. Thank you for listening. Let's get back to our PowerPoint, which you'll see in a minute, and you guys have to help me out if you want, because my students will tell me, Mr. Lambert, we can't see that. You know, we think, you know, because it sounds like I'm talking about something like, well, as you can see on the screen, blah, blah, blah. And then they look at it and say, no way, we cannot see that. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get past that guy, the host. All right. Well,
Did
you
you
know what
tell
we
us-
used to.
Did you tell us where Jerry is? I'm sorry, I don't recall hearing that.
Oh, what's that?
Did you tell us where Jerry is?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, she's had a family gathering in another state, and I'm sorry, I don't
That's
recall. I don't know if it's a family reunion. It might be a family reunion, but yes, that's a good question. I'm gonna have to ask Jerry for the true story. Yeah, my version is just fake news. It isn't, you know, what I heard.
She's not in the hospital. Okay, good.
No.
Is not in a hospital.
No.
She is in good health. Everything's fine. Now, what we used to do, you know, when we had our meetings on ground or in person, we used to ask for interesting acceptances because, you know, people who are writers naturally send their work to publishers to, you know, to either be accepted or not. But a lot of us do self-publishing, which eliminates that middleman. But one part that we, you know, that I'd like to see is if anyone here is a new member or even a guest who wants to introduce themselves or tell us something about yourself.
We need somebody to be muted because we hear a lot of heavy breathing.
Yeah, I'm going to mute everybody again. Yeah, thank you. It sounds like something being dragged across, like
Science fiction.
a suitcase with a dead body inside being dragged across a floor. And hopefully that's not what the sound is, but it certainly sounds like it. Now, okay, so that's all right. Yeah, oh, I was playing hooky there. Yeah, this week. I'm reading these funny comments from Van in the chat. You can certainly, let's see. You can go to the chat if you want to see this this very good commentary from Van. Okay, so all right, so I muted everybody, and I don't know if anyone wants to talk about any interesting acceptances. Has anyone had a piece accepted? Okay. Our guest speaker, yes.
Okay, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the Yad Vashem is. It's a Holocaust remembrance, absolutely the top line, and it's centered in Jerusalem. And during all the wars, there were very many righteous Gentiles that took care of Jewish refugees, and they have been buried in that. They've been transferred and buried into that section. At any rate, the American part of the Yad Vashem was interested in putting out some stories. It's called Lessons from the Shoah. I am not a survivor from that time or in those situations, but I was married to one. And then after Robert died, I was partnered with another one. So it was accepted, and it got shortened a little bit. But it's about, and you're going to hear it about the appreciation or not of a sweet potato.
Yes.
And
yes,
it's not been
okay.
published. It's not published for sale. And I told them they would benefit everybody if they would. So we'll see if it gets out there.
Okay. Do you want to read some from that, Faith?
I'll be doing some of that in my story. Thank you.
Okay, good. Now, here comes part that may be even more fun than the acceptances, which is any interesting rejections. Yeah, I mentioned Oscar Schindler, and yeah, and Jeff, thank you. You pointed out, yeah, Mrs. Schindler too. The righteous Gentiles. You
Yes.
know, you had Wallenberg, who was Swedish, I think, and he was played by the same actor who played Dr. Kildare in the movie version. And it's funny how after he did all this work to rescue, you know, people from the Holocaust. After the war, he was arrested by the Soviets.
Right.
And it's like saying, well, look, here's a guy who fought so tirelessly to save people from the Nazis. He's going to be a threat to any kind of authoritarian regime. And that's, so I think that's probably why they arrested him. But anyway, that's just neither here nor there. But who am I to question Stalin, you know, why he did what he did? Anyway, so
I can add two more. Sugihara is a Japanese diplomat, and he was in Lithuania, and he and his wife decided that they saw all these people outside of their home in the hundreds trying to get a visa to get out of the country. And he's the one, he did about 2,000 of those visas. And also Fen Hai Shou, who was Chinese, and he was stationed in Vienna. Both men did not get, nothing happened to them of losing their privileges of being in that country, but all their medals and whatever they did in their army or navy or whatever they called it were all taken away until about 30 to 40 years later, when the children of these righteous Gentiles brought their story to the surface. And it's never too late to thank somebody.
Yes, and thank you, Faith, because I think that's one of the messages of your presentation today is that time is of the essence if you want to tell your story or your ancestor story. And we have a member who just mentioned that he uploaded his novel. Do you want to give us the website address for that? Because that's a really good acceptance.
Who's that?
It's Jeff. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I call it an accept, but it was an absence of a refusal. That's the way Vela works.
That's good. We'll call that an acceptance. All right. Congratulations, Jeff, and thank you to Van for those website addresses. Now, I did get the message that we are going to be cut off by Zoom in 10 minutes. I know, it's terrible. I should put up some of my shekels to upgrade, but I'm being a little stubborn, you know, about Zoom. So I think that what we'll do is, you know, just fair warning to everybody when we're cut off. We'll look at it as a coffee break. Does everybody drink coffee? Or I don't know. We might have some people that drink tea.
Are we coming back on the same link?
Yes.
Same exact link. Yes. And I don't think you won't need the passcode, Faith, but yes. So please, wherever you got the link, you need to access it in the same place. I just muted everybody. I'm sorry, but you can unmute yourself. It's all right. I'm hearing that background, a little bit of background noise, like a little bit of feedback. Yeah, I'm hearing my own voice. Okay, I can only handle my own voice coming back once, not twice. So, all right. So let's do the introduction, and then we'll come back and we'll hear the actual. Oh, thank you. Okay. You know, we'll hear what you came here for, which is our guest speaker. So, wow, okay, thank you, Van. There's a long link there. Okay, so there's a lot of goodies here in the chat. Now, if you email me at proflambert23 at gmail.com, I can give you a copy of the chat log, which has all these useful links that Van and others are posting. Not the private messages to me. If it's a private message, then I consider it private. I'm not going to, you know, put it out there for the public or for our members. But if it's a public message, then I will, you know, I will distribute it to anyone who sends me an email asking for it. And I will distribute the link because we're being recorded. And what I will do after the meeting is I will take all 3 parts of the video and stick them together into one big video. 2-hour video, and you can email me or Van for the link. I'll be sharing it with Van. Anyway, so please welcome Faith Goldman, Faith Beckerman Goldman, to give her full name. And Faith Goldman has been writing to pen pals since she was in high school, and then writing her thesis in grad school studying physical therapy brought her a degree. Congratulations, excellent. Faith practiced in a multitude of facilities since 1966, and even though retired, she never has her PT hat off, physical therapy. But her most life-changing writing came in the form of a pen pal letters to a private first class stationed in Germany. You'll see this journey in an 8-minute video called Excellence in Arts. This is such a romantic story. 8 months of writing to someone she did not know was superficial, and then the gates opened to where they decided to meet in person during her winter break and Robert's official discharge. This is great. The rest is history. 27 years of marriage, 2 children, Sam and Naomi, and then a sudden death of her husband in 1994. I'm sorry about that. That was the same year my mother passed away. So her eulogy about Robert was the hardest to write. Faith has balanced her writing with stories related to physical therapy and with nonfiction published stories, some serious and some funny. This is great. And you may have read this in our email blurb from Van. The venues go from PT journals to the Daily Breeze My Turn column, to newsletters around the world about the Shanghai Jews, and of course, our anthology and monthly Southwest Manuscripters newsletter, The Right Stuff. Her most recent stories were published in Letters from the Shoah and Stories on Rye, which is a great book about Cantor's Deli in LA or in Hollywood. And I have it right here, and it's autographed by Faith, and it's a wonderful story that she wrote. And it's just a wonderful landmark. It's still there. Delicious food. In her spare time, she volunteers at a retirement home as lay clergy for the Jewish residents and has a little baking business that sweetens people's souls. That's the introduction. That's awesome. Okay, so, okay, down boy. All right. So we're going to get to the video, and I think that I will start showing the video. It's so hilarious. If you could see this, there's a little, it wants me to upgrade on Zoom, and it has a little $sign. And how subtle is that? You guys can't see that. But I think what we'll do is, I don't want to interrupt the video halfway through. So I think what I'd like to do is for us to take a coffee or tea break now. And, because it says we have 4 minutes remaining. So I think what we'll do is we'll just take a break. And then, and then everyone will sign off, or I'll end the meeting. You don't have to sign off, and just sign right back in whenever you feel comfortable. The sooner the better, because we're going to start Faith's video. How does that sound?
That sounds fine, but would you give your email address again, just in case we all get disconnected?
Oh, yes. You can email me. Yeah, and it's proflambert23@gmail.com.
Okay, thanks.
And you're wondering about the 23? Yeah, you're able to sign in right away.
Sure.
If you ever read the work of Robert Anton Wilson, he uses 23 kind of as a way to talk about the Carl Jung's idea of synchronicity, because there was a moment or a time in Robert Anton Wilson's life, he saw the number 23 everywhere. But it's not because of a conspiracy to show him the number 23, it was because he created it with his own mind. So if you visualize something like that, certain numbers will show up. Now, I haven't tried that to win the lottery yet, but I just wanted to mention the number 23. Okay, yeah, 42, well, that's a whole other thing. The secret of the universe. Okay, so I will see you guys, and we will see our guest speaker, Faith, and we will hear what you've been waiting for, which is Faith's video and her presentation when we come back. So
how do we get out of here?
See you soon.
You have to end it. No, it's not.
Looks like we're back. All right, so we're recording again, and I know you're all patiently waiting, and so we I really did take a coffee break, but I have to admit I also helped my wife a little bit with her homework. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I really was listening to her read her homework to me, because she is going for a master's degree in English, and I'm very happy with her and doing that, and it's 100% online. So technology has come a long way. Okay, so Faith, do you want to say anything about your video before we play it? Do you want to do the video first, or?
No, actually, it's about 5 minutes down the road. Okay. Did you want to do your presentation first, or? The beginning part of it, yes.
Yeah, okay, so let's.
Can we unmute everybody else?
Yeah, we're gonna mute everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right, so, and then I will ask Faith to unmute. See, it's like a nice little, I can't force everybody. You know what I can do, Faith? Do you want to be the host for a little while, or? No? Nobody wants to be the host. All right. That's okay. So I think we're ready to go now. If you guys notice that whoever is speaking on the recording, their face gets really big on the screen, but you can go to view in the upper part of your screen, and you can go to speaker view if you just want to see Faith. And there she is. All right. And so I'm going to be quiet and just welcome our guest speaker, Faith Goldman.
Hello. So you're going to put me in the middle?
Yeah, I put you in the middle. You probably can't see it, but yeah. Hi, Ben's waving at you. Yeah, well, whenever you're ready, Faith, go ahead.
Yeah, I just would appreciate not seeing the other faces right now.
Oh, okay.
Is it possible? Because I get distorted vision from that.
I'm
just
not.
put them up on the line on the top.
Yeah, I'm doing immersive view, but I'm not sure if that's going to work. Oh no, okay. Let's see. Best thing to do is just. Can you see yourself as like the big face on the screen right now?
No.
Okay, because I can see you as a big face on the screen, and I'm putting ourselves down at the bottom.
Okay.
What you do is, can you see Faith where it says view on somewhere on your screen? Should be at the top, like top right of the screen.
Yes. Okay.
Go to full screen. Click on full screen.
There we go. Okay.
And yeah. Oh, Ben is seeing Big Dan because I'm still talking. I won't shut up.
Oh well. You know what?
And then you can move the box. So when you go to full screen, it's going to have your face in a minute, and then everybody else, you can kind of move them out of the way, I think.
How do I do that?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, you know what? We'll do with what we have.
Okay, just don't look at us.
Well, when you hear my story, you'll find out that I see double of you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
If you figure it out in between, let me know.
Okay.
As Dan said, my name is Faith Beckerman Goldman. I took my maiden name Beckerman as a birthday present for my mom. She said, as long as I was writing things and was published in some things, she said, can we put our name in there? So I did, my parents, because stories, as they get older, sometimes get embellished or something is wrong. So the earlier you interview your parents or grandparents, the more realistic and factual information you're going to get. And those are just facts. You don't want just facts. You want the person to have empathy and be allowed to have a voice that's positive or negative. But even if you take just one senior friend that ask them if you like, we're writers, ask them if you would like to help them write their story. And I would encourage youngsters to do it too, because the younger generation is a little lost without person-to-person relationships, because it's very technical. And I think that's something that's really sadly needed. So it could be an opportunity for kids in college to, do something on their own, do something, and then you don't have to publish it or anything, but you give it to the family and you hope they won't sock you in the face. So I always start my presentations out with, does everybody know what this is? It's a sweet potato. This one is a big one. It's very large. And the topic is the appreciation or not of a sweet potato. When I was little, age 2.5, I lived in Danbury, Connecticut. It was still World War II, and I was a horrible eater. I was born premature, which had its own effects for my growth and my vision and whatever, but I just was a poor eater. My mother used to put me in the corner and say she wouldn't see my shadow unless I ate. So she got a ration ticket and she went to the store and bought a big potato. And she cooked it and it came out crispy on the skin and a glob of yellow something on the top of it, which was probably oleo. And there was cinnamon in the air. And she placed it in front of me and I was nonverbal, but no way, Jose, was I going to eat that potato. Well, my mother said, do you know that there are Jewish children starving in China? This is the end of the war. They probably hardly knew there was what was going on in China, because most of the other countries were very, very high on the information. And of course, we didn't know 20 years later that I would meet a young man who was born and raised in China from 1940 to 1958, staying there 10 years more than almost all the Jews stayed in there. And it's a long, convoluted story to begin with. So let's flash ahead. I do love potatoes now. Let's flash to Shanghai. Robert is 5 years old, and he's standing in line in a soup kitchen line, which was not his MO. And he grabbed his mom's hand and he went up to the front, and they were very diligent about taking names and if you've been served or not. So he gave his name and he got his sweet potato and he went off to the side to eat it. He ate it very fast. Does anybody know why he ate it fast? Well, there's two reasons. One, he was hungry, and two, he was afraid it might get stolen. This man never ate a sweet potato again after he got out of China. Never, never, never. Flash again to 1945 to Buchenwald, the concentration camp, which was liberated in April of 1945. I had the blessing and Basheret moment of, after Robert died, of meeting another refugee at a singles dance. And I noticed he had a number on his arm, and history to me was very boring world history. Most people, it was facts and numbers and wars, and there was no emotion to it. I guess history doesn't really have an emotion. And here I just came out of, being a widow for a long, for a short amount of time. And here I'm introduced to this man who's opened up my world to World War II, as did Robert, World War II in Shanghai. So the history became much more realistic, real, because the person who was going through it was able to tell the story. So the third part about this sweet potato is Harry, who was my late partner, was in Buchenwald, and his job was to carry a huge vat of something they called soup with ground material at the bottom that they later found out was from the crematorium. It was the bone meal from the bones that were burned. I mean, he wanted to get sick 20 times over. Anyway, he brought this pail of stuff to the other guys, and he went around to the back of the kitchen, and he found a huge pile of sweet potatoes, not hidden, but they're in full view, but they had a wired fence around them. And he said there was nobody around. He took a stick and he attempted to bring one of the potatoes down under the fence. It didn't get under the fence before a Gestapo agent came and told him that he was going to be hung in the morning in public for stealing a potato. Mind you, he didn't get the potato. Another person who knew he was a really good worker said, look, he's a good worker. Don't kill him. He didn't get the potato. He loved sweet potatoes. And if anything convinced him that, we were going to be a team for 20 years, I think it was the potato, because I would cook it for him. He was a bachelor, and present it in a really nice manner. And it took him, I never talked to him during that time he was eating, because his eyes kind of glassed over and you could tell he was in another place for the moment. So the potato has really been very prominent in my life, and I can't help but be reminded that, and somebody reminded me, if you don't have anything to eat, that the potatoes are nutritional. They have a lot of good nutrients in it. So they probably weren't wrong in giving the kids, everybody the potato. So Robert Goldman passed away in 1994 at the age of 54, and it was sudden. My Harry died in 2015 at the age of 88. Both men had nightmares about food, about clothing, about bombs, until they found their voice to be able to share their stories. Most Holocaust survivors were not telling their stories because A, they thought nobody would believe them, and two, it was very hard for them to put it in some kind of structure that wouldn't scare the people he was talking to, because the circumstances and what was happening in both of those men's lives were unbearable, and you don't know how anyone else, could get through it, but they did. So after they both found their voice, their nightmares disappeared, and I was not getting kicked anymore. And it was miraculous. And psychologically, they both went to classes with other survivors, and then they both separately, they didn't know each other. Well, they may know each other now, but I'm kind of upstairs there. But once they started verbalizing and vocalizing, their whole demeanor changed. And they found people who were interested in listening to their story. Because, as you know, these survivors are in their 80s, 90s, and maybe in 10 years, there will not be anyone to speak in first person. So that gave you a little taste of why these guys both I know our story is just about Robert, but I can't help but give Harry so much credit, because he helped me learn about World War II globally, not just pocketed in one area. And I hope we never have a World War III or anything like that. I want to show you one picture. I wish we could get full view of this, because I can't see what I'm showing here. Anyhow, this is the first 18 years of Robert's life. Let's see if I can show you. Up in the right-hand corner, he's a baby, and down, 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 down. In the left corner is when he was 18 years old when he left Shanghai. Certainly a well-dressed, and he was children during wars became adults in children's shoes. There is no doubt that they had to take more responsibilities on. They may have had a dysfunctional family. Some of their families might have left without them, which is what happened with Robert. And yet his picture for that passport, he presented himself as a Joe College, just a really nice picture. And it was nice to see that attire that he had, because they were under communist rule, and money was tight and food was tight and whatever. But I think the families made sure that the kids, even if they had a one or two suits or sets of clothing for school, they would wash it every day and clean it, and then the kid would wear it the next day. So Robert's first 18 years were very tumultuous. I'm going to be talking about World War II before that point, but probably most of you are familiar with World War II and perhaps had taken part in it. I don't know. But with Hitler at their heels, 18,000 Jews left Germany. They left Germany, they left Lithuania, Poland, Austria, and you had, in order to leave, you had to have a visa to get out. And you had to give them all your worldly goods, whether it's a home or silver or a business. You had to give that to them before they would give you a piece of paper. And very often you were disqualified one time, you would come back, they'd do it another time. And by the third time, maybe you got it right. And there are some people that committed suicide before because they couldn't get on a list, or the list was 1,000 families long. Anyway, Robert's family was able to get out of Berlin, and they came through Berlin, and they trained all the way to Italy, and then a boat, which took about 6 weeks to go from Italy to Shanghai. Before docking at Shanghai, they were vetted in Japan, who was already at war with China, but Japan let them in to have a break and to make sure they had a place to go in Shanghai. You didn't need anything to get into Shanghai at all. No visas, no money, nothing. And you wonder, well, why did they do that? Why would that country, who is already at war, accept a whole bunch of people? And the bottom line is there's no anti-Semitism within the Chinese community or the Japanese community. They absolutely have been documented that they don't know what reason there would be to annihilate all these people. And thank goodness they didn't. There's another thought about why the Japanese let the people into Shanghai, and is if they won the war, they would already have a community of doctors, lawyers, accountants, teachers, whatever. They had a high level of professionals that they could just, you know, pull into their government. But that didn't happen either, thank goodness. So when they got to Shanghai, it was a huge, a shock beyond anything. They came in with, they had multiple layers of clothing. They had good shoes. They could carry whatever clothing they could in their valise. They were only allowed $10 out, plus the clothing on their back. And when they came off those docks onto the pier, most of them passed out practically because it was an absolute slum. Shanghai was once known as the Paris of the East. It was now the slum of the East. And here are these thousands of people every couple of days coming off a big ship. What are you going to do with them? Well, there were two waves of Jews that came in before World War II. And this is important to note. In the 1910s and 1920s, groups from Baghdad and India and the Middle East came to Shanghai to find the Silk Road and make money. And actually that whole group, of which there were about 400, established and built many of the things in Shanghai to ready the people who were coming in. They built schools, they built synagogues, they built big buildings to bring people in, like Ellis Island, to vet them and get them settled. So that group was, and they made money, they had money. The second group that came in was from Russia. If you saw Fiddler on the Roof, they were not in a ghetto, they were not in any barbed wire, but they weren't free. And as you recall, on the end, they're all going someplace. Well, with the Russian community, it was about 4,000 that came to Shanghai before the war. So they were already established. And there were many organizations that helped too. One was called the Joint. The other one is called HIAS, H-I-A-S. It's Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Both organizations are non-religious, non-denominational. They help today all over the world. But we don't know what's going on all over the world as far as refugees go. I mean, and there are horrible things that they help with that doesn't make the news. It's not terrible news, it's good news. And sometimes good news you don't find out about. At any rate, when the families came in, Robert wasn't born yet, but his mother was pregnant on that trip, which had its own side effects. I'm sure she was not comfortable. So Robert was born about 6 months later when they got into their place of living. Their living conditions were very meager. This is called a heim. It's a 2-level apartment side by side. The actual dimensions of the room might be 10 by 12. And you could have 2 or 3 people in that room, or you could have 8. It depended on how many were coming in at the time, and they had to find places for everybody, and their privacy was gone, any privacy. And in Robert's case, he was born in May 30th, 1940. The Japanese were in Shanghai, but they did have a hospital there. In fact, I saw the hospital when I was there in 2006. I stood on the same street, and I had an absolute glow in me, because my mother-in-law, while I was in labor with my daughter, was telling me how she and her mother went on a rickshaw in the middle of the night on May 30th, and we're going up and down on the cobblestones, and she said, "Oh, you're going to be fine." And meanwhile, that wasn't a good thing to tell me, but she did give birth, and it was a clean hospital, and thank goodness. There were only 64 births in Shanghai in 1940. There were 18,000 people, plus the ones that were there before. Nobody really wanted to bring a child up in those circumstances. And actually by 1946, there were about 600 births in those 6 years. So the kids that were born there, like Robert, had no preconceived ideas of what life was truly like. He only knew what he had where he was. And it was a slow, steady job on his part to find out about his family and why it was so dysfunctional. I'll backtrack here for a second. As I was doing his journey to try and find the missing pieces of his life, as he only wrote 27 pages before he died, and those 27 pages were till the age of 8. We don't know why he stopped at 8, whether it was too traumatic to write after age 8, or whether it made him sick and very disjointed to be able to write about it. Because you would think, okay, the war is going to be over and things would get better and people would go someplace. That didn't happen in his case. So he had it, I would say, much more difficult than the kids that left and went someplace else. So I mentioned the living conditions. Food was meager. There were the Russians and the people from Baghdad and whatever did make provisions for them. And up until Pearl Harbor, boats were able to come in with boatloads of food and other things from other organizations. But after Pearl Harbor, that revenue was closed. So they had to make do with what they have. And I don't mean to be stereotypic about Jews, but if they can, I think they dress their children well, and they dress well, even if it's only 1 or 2 things they have to dress from. And if you saw the pictures that you will see of in the middle of Shanghai, these people are selling their clothes to one another. That's all they had left. And they would barter. And, and most of the things were not anybody's sizes either. Robert tells the story that they only got new shoes once every 2 years, whether they needed it or not. And of course, a growing kid is going to need shoes a lot more often. And I will tell you one thing, in California here, where we lived for a long time, one of Robert's favorite stores was Florsheim shoes. He would go there and he bought the most beautiful shoes. And, I didn't have to ask him a thing of why he thought these shoes were so wonderful. And you could tell that he could buy them, he could wear them, he could get new ones. And he treasured, he took very good care of his stuff. I couldn't iron his shirts good enough, so he ironed his own. That was pretty good. And I couldn't roll the socks the same way he did. So he did it. So, okay. But he didn't do dishes. So I lucked out on that. As I said, Robert lived there to 1958. His parents got divorced in 1941. There already was a dysfunctional family in the middle of a war in a poor community. The walls were absolutely paper thin, and he would hear arguing between his father and mother. So the father moved out, and my mother-in-law had a son by another man, and the man she married didn't have any children. I mean, it was just yours, mine, and ours, and it took me a while to figure it all out. But as many divorces go, Robert would go to his father's during the weekend, and he would go stay with his mother during the week. And of course, they would tell terrible things about each other, and how he rose to himself and was quite remarkable. And I think, and after he started writing, he put some emotion into those dates that he put down. It wasn't just April, blah, blah, blah. You know, he put some emotion into it. Again, I'm saying that though he talked about his life after 1948, he hadn't written about it. And so I was determined to find the rest of those 10 years. And I hope I'm not boring you guys. How was I going to find information about him? Because he took most of his memories with him. And the fact that he did 27 pages, I've made himself a new word of permissioned. I felt permissioned to finish his story, which I have. But how was I going to do that? And right now, I think I want to show the video because, and I want you to pay attention to the first couple of sentences on the video. Okay, this is from Excellent in Arts. It was a Torrance award ceremony, and afterward, they videotaped me. They got 2.5 hours of videotape down to 8 minutes.
Wow. That's great, yes.
So we can show that?
Yes, we'll show that now, Faith. So thank you, Faith. So yeah, we're going to show that now. We happen to have 8 minutes left from Zoom. So
okay,
it
let's
actually
go quick.
No, it works out very well. Now, if any of you ever end up doing a Zoom, host, duty, there's these little buttons you have to that optimize the video. It says share sound and optimize for video clip. And so I'm doing that. Now I'm going to skip the ads. Right? I don't think, so we're going to get right to Faith's video, and you should see it in a minute. Here we go.
Uh-oh. Oh, what happened?
No, it's all right. It'll work.
Excellence in Arts Literary Arts winner and writer Faith Goldman has come a long way.
When I was 4, there was a question as whether I would write actually ever from a physical and visual standpoint. I was either going to go to the Braille school for the Braille for the rest of my life or mainstream me into the regular schools.
Goldman, who grew up in Connecticut, was instead given very strong lenses and worked hard with her teachers in regular schools. She didn't have to learn Braille and go to a private school. Goldman eventually got a chance to write.
To have a pen in my hand to do anything was really exciting for me and difficult, but it was great. So if I could write anything at age 4, I would have, even on the walls.
Goldman started writing in high school through a Pen Pals program.
There was an opportunity to write to Pen Pals in the back of the comic book, Archie and Jughead and Katie Keene. So I started writing to Pen Pals when I was in high school. And it was really exciting. I mean, visually it was exciting and getting response from people all over.
Writing to friends around the world to keep in touch was how she eventually met her husband in 1965.
He was stationed in Germany in United States Army, and he had a friend who said, I think you need to get settled and find a girl, blah, blah, blah. And so he sent a first letter. And we wrote for 8 months across the Atlantic Ocean. And it was the kind of writing that I don't think exists today. But as we got to know each other, We really had an opportunity to take our exterior off and write to the point where I was in college and Robert came back from the Army in New York, and the rest was history.
Goldman studied to become a physical therapist in college and eventually published articles on that subject in journals and case studies. She's also been published in the Daily Breeze numerous times.
My turn in the Daily Breeze, I have probably had about 30 different stories over the years.
She's never been formally trained in writing, but has taken a class.
The only writing class I took was, my daughter sent me to school at UCLA for a 2-hour seminar on writing.
She came away from that class with a short story she wrote called Are You My Mother? That was eventually published. She tends to write short nonfiction stories.
Chicken Soup on the Barbie, okay, and The Frog and I, and The Only Time I Went to a Tattoo Parlor. So those even the titles are suggestive of something funny, and I've needed some funny stuff in my life.
Goldman says the time it takes her to write a story can vary.
Sometimes it could be very fast, and I think it's true with other writers. It could go over a period of months.
But her biggest project to date has taken her years to work on.
I'd say 80% of what I've written about since Robert passed away in 1994 has been about the Jews of Shanghai. Finding them, writing ads, classified ads all over the world to find people that stayed there with him when he was there.
Goldman says there isn't a lot of information about what it was like for a Jewish refugee, such as her husband, to live in Shanghai during World War II.
As far as the Shanghai stuff goes, which is not written about much because my husband and his father left 10 years after most people left. It was a communist country in 1949. They didn't leave till 1958.
It wasn't until the two of them went to see a movie that Goldman's husband started casting some light on his time there.
It wasn't until we went to see Steven Spielberg's movie Empire of the Sun, which came out in 1988. It's mostly about the British internment in Shanghai. Even though Robert was in a Hunkyu ghetto, which was for stateless refugees in the middle of Shanghai, this camp was outside of Shanghai, and it was for British people.
Little did Goldman know that movie was the first step in the start of a long journey for her next literary project.
When we went to see that movie, Robert's face was practically glued to the screen, and tears. He just opened up. He said, "That's me," and it was him. A little bit different setting, same time frame.
Her husband started sharing more information. She even scripted a presentation for his surprise 50th birthday in 1990. It was about his time in Shanghai.
I did a presentation for him, and writing a script for a fun party that was lasting 2 hours is also a form of writing, but nobody saw it except me. They saw the outcome of it, and it was really well received.
Goldman's husband managed to also write 27 pages in 1997 about his experience before he passed away. Since then, Goldman traveled to China to learn more about her husband's time there. She went in 2006.
I think he would have gone back to Shanghai as an older person, but it didn't work out, so I went for him. It was a huge job to go and find information. I not only found the information, I found the people, 7 people that were Robert's age that stayed until 1958, 2 of which live in Van Nuys. I interviewed them, I met them, and then I went to China with them.
Her goal is to publish an anthology and a DVD presenting all the interviews and information she's found over the years. Even with all her writing experience, though, this project is tough.
It's harder to write that because I'm still personally involved. Even though it's been 20 years, it's still very raw, and I still want him to proofread the stuff. But of course, he might be.
She still hopes to publish this large volume of work. In fact, Goldman is actually published in another anthology called When Words Collide through the Southwest Manuscripters. She's been a member of the writing group for almost 20 years.
We just finished an anthology of which I'm printed in, and it took us 2 years to get it published.
Well, hello. So we are going to start part 3 of our meeting, and My apologies for the interruption. So thank you, Faith. Yeah, this is very interesting, and so we're going to continue with Faith's video now. So it ended where we talked.
Only another 2 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, the anthology. I think the Southwest Manuscripters anthology was on the screen. So I've kind of queued it up now to see the last 2 minutes, and Van has a video link. Thank you, Van, to see the whole video on your own. But this is so great to see your wedding pictures, Faith, and everything else. So let's go back, and we'll get to the rest of the video. And I'm sorry, I need to optimize this again in Zoom so it's not blurry when you see it. And here we go. All right.
She still hopes to publish this large volume of work. In fact, called When Words Collide through the Southwest Manuscripters. She's been a member of the writing group for almost 20 years.
We just finished an anthology of which I'm printed in, and it took us 2 years to get it published and the whole process. But once you have it in your hand and other people can read it, it's great.
Goldman's motivation for writing comes from different places.
Sometimes you just write for yourself. And then if you think it's really good, you share it with others. Hopefully they'll be honest with what they say about it. And my daughter's been pretty honest, and other people have said, this doesn't flow right, blah, blah, blah. You need to redo it. And that's great. It takes a while to get used to hearing, well, it's negative feedback, but it turns into be positive feedback.
As for her Excellence in Arts Award win for literary arts, she was definitely surprised that she won.
I just think there's a lot of untapped
Reservoirs of talent, that really, I think part of this was just, exceptional that, somebody like me, who's not a noted writer, can be thanked. I encourage all of you to write with a pen, so you know what a pen is. Your kids would know what a pen is. Paint with a brush. Sing or dance. It's free and fun and good for your soul. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So let's get back to Faith. You might hear a little bit of, hey, that's our doorbell. Don't you love that music? All right.
Yeah. I'm coming for coffee.
They're coming for coffee. I'm so sorry. I don't know. Or sweet potatoes. Yeah. So, and all right. And yeah. And I need to turn off this video because what happens on YouTube is it just keeps playing videos again and again and again. And then you say, no, let's stop this. So there's this one about COVID-19. Okay. So this is, I guess, another opportunity for a coffee break. Let me turn this video off now that we've seen Faith. And okay, how are we doing? All right. So and I'm sorry, Faith. Yeah, I couldn't block. I wanted to kind of get everybody else's face to disappear.
That's okay.
Especially mine. Okay.
No.
Faith, do you want to talk a little bit about the video that we just saw?
Yes, I would be interested to hear if somebody picked up on a medical malady that I was born with in the beginning. Was anybody able to pick that up? Or what was wrong? Can you unmute?
Was it about vision?
Yes.
And it was because of your like being born a preemie like me?
Yes.
And what was the name of it?
Well, it was premature oxygen problem. They gave 100% oxygen in the incubators at that time, and that destroys the retinas. And so Stevie Wonder was born around the same time as me. He was in an incubator longer and became blind. I became nearly blind, but the thing about, I didn't have to learn Braille when I went to school. But the thing that traveled throughout my journey about Robert, I was not thinking of my own journey of how I was able to do what I did. And my kids said, Mom, this is your story too. So I've changed some of the story and infiltrated how I got on the subway, how I found the archives, how I was able, they helped me use microfiche in order to find the facts and people about Robert's life. I went to universities, I went to New York to the archives of many Jewish institutions and had to get permission to go there. They weren't available online yet. You had to petition to see if you're validated to be able to go into their archives, which I was. But I couldn't see the microfiche, so there was somebody there that really helped enhance it. And all along the line, I probably took steps and things that my kids probably wouldn't have wanted to know about, maybe a little risky. I went to interview a 90-year-old artist who lived in Mount Vernon, who was totally deaf. We had no cell phones in those days. It was in 2000, and I didn't tell my kids about it until after I got back to New York into my cousin's apartment, because he was by himself in this apartment and he was 90, and he was not 90 in his mannerism, let's put it that way. He wanted to take me upstairs to see his etchings, which he did. And he showed me, besides his artwork that he did in China, he had a whole wall of Coney Island. But what was that he had painted in so far were all nude participants at the beach. And there were spots left open for other pictures, other paintings to be in. And he looked at me and he said, like this. And I go, I have to go to the train now and leave. I was scared to death. I wasn't really scared, but it was a little intimidating, and not having a phone was, wow. Anyway, he was wonderful. But visually, I just put one foot in front of the other and pushed. And luckily, I got to where I wanted to go, even though I was walking with a cane at the time and could have used a guide dog or a support animal or something, but I didn't. So anyway, it takes a while to pat yourself on the back, but in this case, I think it's great because it could instill in someone else what you can accomplish within what you have. And many of us, just regardless of what kind of physical things we might have, there are people that will sit in a rocking chair and say goodbye to the world. And then there's people will get up and use a walker in public, which for many years during therapy and years ago, nobody would be seen outside with a walker. They thought they drew too much attention to themselves and they were really old, or whatever. So this
never helps.
Project and the writing of it, I've put myself in it now into a couple of chapters. It's not finished, but I think maybe next year or something. Like I have some of it's printed in various places, but it doesn't have my voice in it. So I think you'll probably agree that it's okay to put my voice in there too.
Absolutely.
To see, when I went to Shanghai with a rickshaw reunion group, there were 60 people that had been born there or came to Shanghai in those years.
Wow.
Traveling with them for them to see a house or a room number or a place where they got their shoes fixed or whatever was just amazing. And we also went with a gentleman who played a big role in Robert's life until they were 12 years old, was on the trip with us. So he was able to fill in many of the things that Robert went through. And my son was with us too. And our claim to fame is it's a picture of me and a little Chinese lady. I think you saw it in the beginning.
Yeah, put your hand up.
Her name, and you'll see it again. Her name was Yi Queer. I had a photographer translator with me and a freelance writer, and we planned the day to go find these places. And when we got to the last place, most of the houses on that street were in the process of being demolished. They were going to be taken away from the people, and made into high rises. And they did take the people and put them in nice apartment housing with electricity and all that. They hated it. But nevertheless, when we got to that street, my two partners were afraid that that house wouldn't be there. But it was. It was. And it was number 146. And that little lady and her family lived next door to Robert for those 10 years.
Oh, my.
And Robert and his father stayed in China another 10 years. So Robert learned to find a lot of Chinese friends and whatever. And then I brought my son the next day to meet this lady. And she, which is perhaps kind of out of character, this little lady hugged the stuffings out of him. And Sam was, my son too are men, a little more reserved. He just couldn't believe that this lady knew his father for all those years. And 2 weeks later, the house was demolished. So here's another Yiddish word, besheret, meant to be. That trip was meant to be, because without that last contact, it would have felt empty. And both the people that were with me were like, oh my God, I'm so glad it was there, because they wouldn't know how to handle me if it wasn't there. But luckily it was there. So they put that, I don't know if you can see, let's see. Behind me, there's a full storyboard. It's in Chinese and in American, in English, and it's pictures of Robert and his family all the way to 1958. And it's on the wall of the Shanghai Jewish Refugees Museum in Shanghai. I made sure that he got placed there. And it took a while because the government really didn't want to know that people were left under the communist ruling for 10 years because they had a hard time getting out, which Robert did. Robert and his father had.
Is this Robert on the right?
Yes, that's him as a very sad boy. A very forlorn look on that face was.
Right, sad.
Yes.
But I wanted to say, you have another a chapter. You said your son was on that trip with you.
Yes.
And your husband?
No. My son.
But he was there. Your son was there, sort of in the place of representing your husband. And was your daughter able to go?
No.
Because I think it would be great to include some of his reactions.
Yes.
Because that I think was significant, and I'm sure your daughter has some reactions too.
Oh, they've both written about it.
And
they
that
haven't publicly spoken.
Another generation besides, and I'm sure you have things about his parents too.
Well, it's still as if it was yesterday when they do talk about their dad. It's it's just, and it's been 27 years and it feels like yesterday at times. But the strength that he had and the fortitude and the education that they got in Shanghai was A+. It was Oxford, Cambridge type of teaching. And they really got a wonderful education. So
I wanted to show this photo.
Yes.
It's a little bit clearer. The one that you're talking about, Faith. I'm sorry. This is the one.
You could show the rest of them. Actually,
yeah.
We're kind of finished.
Yeah, let's do that.
So let's go from top to bottom.
Okay. And now I put this one on top. And I cut off the text a little bit on the bottom.
That's okay.
Yeah, and this is Robert. I'm sorry, I don't know why. Let me go to that particular slide. Yeah, let me get to relive the entire meeting today. Okay, this is deja vu. Okay, so and I also want to talk about your film recommendations. We could do that later.
We can. Well, it's right here now, so I could tell you.
Yeah.
I'm very prejudiced to say Arc Shanghai is my favorite. Number one, I have a cameo in it, and Sam does too at the end. And it's with the people that took this trip with us, and it's well documented, and it has a lot of the history of the problems in Europe and them coming over. Port of Last Resort and Empire of the Sun are both available, I don't know, YouTube or, or some other format. You can't buy it anymore, but they are wonderful.
Yeah, I saw Empire of the Sun, and yeah, Faith and I had, you know, I talked on the phone a little bit about that movie and my love of Steven Spielberg and his work, but yeah, that's interesting that your husband Robert had such a kind of emotional reaction when you saw that movie with him. You know, Empire.
That was not him at all. He was a very reserved person.
Oh.
So it was floodgates that opened. It was so cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
He almost doesn't remember his reaction. He almost said, "Oh, I couldn't have done that," but he did.
And anyone who has a chance to view that film, Empire of the Sun, I mean, I recommend it as well. And you know, as a World War II, I think some of the best World War II movies, like Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List and Empire of the Sun, were made by Steven Spielberg. And you can certainly debate me on that. I mean, we certainly have, you know, probably everyone has their own view about movies that they like and World War II movies. And I want to say, here's when Faith was talking about World War II, I brought out this book. You can't see it very well, but A World at Arms. This is just one of my vast collection of World War II books. My wife just put she had our neighbors who happen to be carpenters, paid them to put these shelving units in our garage to take care of my collection is so, you know, huge that my wife is the opposite of a clutterer. I'm a clutterer and she's a very neat person. And we balance each other out pretty well, but yeah, so we've got the garage full of stuff. So I'm learning to throw things away. So, you know, anyway, but not books. I never throw away books. But anyway, let's go through some of these slides. So this one is, this is Robert on the right-hand side of the screen. And what can you tell us about Unfinished Memories, Faith?
Well, I didn't make that term. The museum decided that would be a good title, and it was. It was a good title. He didn't get a chance to, you know, be a grandfather or walk his daughter down the aisle or any. They were unfinished, and his story was unfinished. So, you know, the fact that he's on the wall in a museum, and then this storyboard went around the world with 16 other storyboards that were on display at Hillel at UCLA. When they had a Chinese contingency come here, and I told my story there. And for a while, people, do you speak Chinese? Were you there? I go, no. And it's almost as if I had been there.
Yes. And this is you in Shanghai on the left, lower left?
Yes, and that's the little lady, you queer. I was trying to give her a necklace that my husband made for me to give her. And she asked someone who spoke Shanghainese, well, who made this for you? And I said, Robert. And she said, no, you have to have it.
Oh.
I mean, she was toothless. She was just the sweetest lady.
I think we have a larger, there it is, the larger version of the photo. And the Jews of Shanghai. She wears the Mandarin clothing, and look at the crease in her shirt. I mean, she's impeccable. Oh my. Yes, it is. So let's go. Yeah, let's go through them. Well, so you talked a bit about your story about sweet potatoes, and this was the last picture on the right in August of '94. It was a month before Robert died. Oh. So that is a very encompassing life right there. You know, they say that some people do more in a life than in a short life than they do in a long life. Yeah. They tell me that because it's supposed to be comforting. Sometimes it isn't. No. I wanted more. Yes. No. It reminds me of there's a YouTube video about a young lady who died of cancer, and her name is Claire. I think if you look up, well, that's another subject, but go to YouTube and look up Claire and cancer. She did so much in her young life. But anyway, that kind of reminds me of Robert. But and she got a meeting with Bernie Sanders during the campaign.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but anyway, so that's another story.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. Okay. Oh, these are some documents.
Okay, so these are original birth certificates, one in English at the day of his birth in 1940. And then when the communists came over, they made out their own birth certificate with all the credentials on it, which were correct. So those pieces of paper are just so valuable to me. Yeah. Let's go to the
amazing.
Next. Yeah. Let's go to the next.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the one in 1948. Robert had a half brother, but the half brother, the mother, her new husband, and the aunt and uncle left Shanghai. The father had custody of Robert and kept him there.
Oh.
If I had met him, I probably would have wrung his neck.
Yeah.
But over the 10 years of information that I got from other people, he took very good care of him, even though he was much, much older and feeble. And Robert came out probably scorned from family relationships, and all the more wanted to have a normal family. And my parents ate him up right away, and he ate them up right away. So I think it was a beautiful time where he would breathe much differently. It was just, he was very happy to be a husband and a father. And these are kids, and they're dressed pretty well for 1945, you know, and they all have these little knickers. That's not him. Robert's up there and he's gorgeous. His father parted his hair on one side and his mother parted it on another. That's how angry they were at each other. This is the half-sister. This half-sister, which he didn't know about until 1952, sponsored him and his father to come to England in 58. So that was a new find. Let's go to the next one.
Yes. Sorry. Oh,
and this is towards the end. And I found this young lady and Victor, and of course there's Robert. And then I read about this one. I found his sister in Australia. And you can see his dad is much older than he was born in 1892. So during the war, he was already 50 years old when things started. And Robert here in this picture is 9.
Wow.
But, to see a fun picture like this was great because he found friends there. He made his own social circle.
And you can see the young ladies here, the Chinese ladies with Robert and his family.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. And Robert's father was with Noah.
Yes, and he was Polish. So he had a Polish passport, and he put Robert on it, so he couldn't get out. Okay, let's go to the next. Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. Yes.
Okay. Meeting these people. This is back in the 9th century. These are Kaifeng Jews, Kaifeng.
Oh.
They are obviously assimilated between the Chinese and some other peoples. I'm not sure who they were. They believe they're Jewish, and they have Torah. They had Torahs, and they had a synagogue, and then they dwindled down, and now people are coming through the woodwork saying they're descendants of these Jews, and they want to reestablish this Jewish museum in Kaifeng, and the government has said no.
Oh, very interesting.
Judaism is not recognized in China.
Oh, it's not?
It is not recognized. Oh. Any of the synagogues that are there, you would never know they're a synagogue because they're like in a villa with nothing on the outside that says that would show it was a synagogue at all.
Oh.
They're allowed to do that, but in secret.
And there's a general anti-religious bias probably from
Oh,
the
yeah.
communist
Oh, yeah.
government. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next
All right,
one.
let's go to the next one.
This was Robert's father's form. He was an entrepreneur in Berlin. He owned the first dry cleaning establishment. And when he left Berlin, he didn't go by train and boat like the rest of them did. He went on KLM Airlines with a steam press from this store to take to China in the event he could use it, because that's what he did. That was his profession.
Yes.
But, you know, it wasn't like a doctor's bag or a law book or something. It was a machine. And each place they lived at, they had it outside in the you know, the out in the back of where they lived. Of course, it was never used.
Yes, yes.
And he had to get, and the father went back to Germany to see if he could get restitution, and they didn't give him any.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
Okay, let's take a look.
We talked about Sugihara.
Yes.
You know, there's materials coming out in this last year about him, although it was, you know, his story's been around for many, many years, but they were a wonderful family that did 2,000 people, you know, got out because of them.
Good.
Next one, please.
It's so ironic. I mean, that, you know, you have people in one country who are kind of whistleblowers about the atrocities that are going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember it was this book, The Rape of Nanking, by Iris Chung, where it was an emissary of Nazi Germany who was writing letters to Hitler saying, the Japanese are doing terrible things to the people in Nanking. But anyway.
They were terrible to the Chinese people in Shanghai also.
Yeah.
In fact, they used to have an open field, and if one of these poor Chinese did something wrong, they literally chopped their heads off in a public setting. But they were okay to the Jews. As I mentioned,
yes.
There's no anti-Semitism, so.
Yes.
Okay, next, please.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay, this is the roots. We talked about some people came from Russia, some people came from Germany and whatever. And the Hankyu ghetto that they were put in was a ghetto with no walls. It was 1 square mile in existence for 18,000 plus people. And these were not apartment houses. They were 2- and 3-story places. So they were pushed together. And of course, disease was rampant because of the close quarters also.
Yes.
Next. So you can see all these people in one balcony. They're outside, but you know, inside it was decided if they didn't decide how many people could be in those apartments until they would lay them down on the floor. If you could lie down on the floor, or maybe 2 or 3 people could lie down on the floor and not be against a wall or something, that's how many people you could have be in the room. If somebody died,
my God,
they brought somebody else in. And these facilities had no indoor plumbing. Okay? Nothing.
Kind of like a prison cell.
Prison cell, they had a toilet. These guys
at least they, oh my God. Yeah.
So these are the streets, and we walked on every street that Robert lived on. And in fact, the communists changed the names of the streets in 1950. They took all the old names off and put on new names. So I had an old map and a new map superimposed on each other, so we knew where to go.
Where to go, yes. All right.
That trip was A+.
A+, yes.
And they did bury people. They had one of the first groups that formulated after they landed in Shanghai, and seeing the surroundings, they knew there would be deaths sooner than later. They made sure they had a cemetery and a cemetery group of people that would manage the funeral and get a gravestone for them. And in about 1952, the communists took all these grave markers off and put them in, they used them as concrete in bridges in bridges, in buildings, and
Oh,
sidewalks. And one of the people there from Israel, who's a tour director, Devere Bargal, he
mhm.
has uprooted 70 of these sites, of these
that-
gravestones, and contact the people who belong to them.
Oh,
So,
that's tragic. Yeah.
yeah, well,
All right.
it was land. It was land that was valuable.
Yes.
And if doctors were taking, if they could see it, you can see there's like 4 people. So they rotated every hour or 2. It would be a different kind of doctor in that place. They had no medicine though. They had no antibiotics in those days. Robert had spinal meningitis, was in an isolation hospital, and you know, got through by the grace of God more than anything.
Yes.
Well, that we showed kind of that before you.
Of the ghetto. Yes. Stateless refugees.
Okay, so in February of 43, in 42, the butcher of Warsaw, his name was Joseph Weisenstein, something like that. Anyhow, he was called the butcher of Warsaw. And the Germans told the people in Japan to make a little place where all these Jews would gather and put kerosene things around the building and blow them up. The Japanese did not adhere to any of those rules, but they took everybody who came after 1937, who were living a little bit outside the ghetto. They brought them all in, so they were just crammed like sardines after that, but they lived.
They lived. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, here it was. It's Messengers. Excuse me.
Oh, that's him. Okay.
I gave him now this guy over here is his name is Goya. He's about 4'9" tall. He's Japanese. He was in charge of the comings and goings out of the ghetto and into the ghetto. Even though there were no fences or walls, you had to pass by him. And he gave himself the name of King of the Jews.
Give me a call.
At any rate.
King of the Jews, really.
Yeah. But he didn't kill anybody. He slapped people in the face, hit him with a stick or something, but there was no mass, destruction of people. In fact, he came back after the war and he stood in this center and there were 5 or 6 men who decided he came back to get killed by these people. And they decided that was not a good thing to do. And he kept they would hit him and then he'd go down and he popped back up. And he said, you can kill me now. I did bad things, but they didn't.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if he was part of the war crimes trials in Tokyo.
I don't know about.
Probably not. There were bigger fish to fry, like Hirohito.
Yeah. Next, please.
Tojo.
This is Talmud Torah. This is the Hebrew school. And if you notice, they're all men. Girls at that time didn't warrant any Hebrew schooling. So
same situation in countries like Saudi Arabia. Well,
yeah, there's some people that are balking.
Yes.
Okay. And religion, and as I mentioned, schooling was A+. This is one of the. It's not Robert's report card, but this is like first grade, and the type of things that they learned were amazing. I mean, thank goodness. But they also went to school because they got lunch. Oh. So that was and if they went to Talmud Torah, they got a banana, which they could eat. So there were little enticements to have kids go to school. Just amazing teachers. I didn't meet any of them, but there wasn't anything bad said about any of them.
Yes.
Okay.
We have about 4 minutes until.
Okay, then we can just finish it.
Yes.
Let's do the. Are there any questions?
And then when we come back, we can do question and answer.
Well, we could do that now.
Yeah.
Let's do that now.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay. I think we're probably at the end almost.
These are the synagogues that these very wealthy people from the Middle East built.
Yes.
Huge there's only, as I mentioned, there's a synagogue that's still in existence, but it's not a synagogue that you can pray in, except if they're having a big, something fancy and politically correct in China, then they will let these two places be open for the public.
It's so sad. The one synagogue was demolished in 1985.
Yes. Yep.
This is just, pieces of history.
Yeah.
Okay. How?
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Well, this is
Robert?
Hanukkah. No. It's an army sergeant. When they liberated Shanghai, there were several Jewish soldiers who knew that there were children in this ghetto, and they wanted to stay and take care of them and give them food and whatever. And this gentleman came in his uniform, and he found a little girl who was tattered and whatever, and the uniform scared her to death. But he said, "I'm Jewish," and she understood English. And she said, and he had chocolate in his hand, a Hershey bar. And she said, "Why would anybody give any Jewish kid a Hershey bar?" I mean, just couldn't understand it. And I met her, and then she introduced me to Mr. Weissman. And this is the Hanukkah gelt in Chinese that they gave him at Hanukkah time.
Oh,
It was
very nice.
such a phenomenal story.
With the
You don't
Chinese-
know who you're going to know until you know it.
That's right. Yes. Amazing.
Yep. Birthday party in 1946. So the war was over. But these kids don't look, I mean, they don't have much emotion in their faces.
No.
Like, what are we doing here?
Not
But
a lot
at
of
least-
smiles. Some are smiling. Not many.
No. Okay. Robert loved music. In fact, he taught ballroom dancing on
Oh.
the ship coming from Shanghai to England.
Hmm.
And then he taught ballroom dancing when he came to England. And our first date, he danced me away, and woo, it was great.
Swept you off your
That's a
feet.
Victrola.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he did. He did.
There's that.
Passport. There is
Polish.
not a museum that doesn't want this passport in
Oh.
person, or the original, and
Oh my
I'm
God.
not ready to give it to them. It goes to
It
the
looks
kids.
like it might have been scanned, and unfortunately that messes
Insignia?
up some of the,
Yeah.
but that's okay. As long as you have the original,
Oh, I have the original.
Faith.
Oh yeah.
We can take photos of it, or you can take photos of it. That's that great picture of Robert. Wow,
Still very serious.
handsome and serious boy.
And a little
Yeah.
withdrawn, like a little, shallow eyes. He said it got a lot of girls when he came to America, because somebody would see a guy sitting at the bar and have those little sappy eyes. And he said it brought the girls to him. I go, okay, but not this one.
Yes. So remember, guys, sign back in. That Van is right about that. Sign back in when we get signed out. We have a couple more slides, and
that's
5 to 10 minutes. 6 more. Thank you, honey. Yeah. But let's see. Oh,
While we're waiting,
there it is.
While we're waiting, could somebody get me a new knee, please? I'm in the market for a new knee.
Oh,
Oh
I would
dear.
love to.
This is
Okay, we're back. Hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. So we have a few more minutes, and I am going to take us back for the remaining slides, which
I wanted to tell you one more thing. Of course, there's one more thing. Columbo said that all the time. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, it went in and out. It'll come back. Okay. Oh, I know what it was. When I had to apply to go into the archives of these Jewish institutions and other institutions, so I got in, and so very helpful. But when I got into, you had to be vetted in these, this was 2000 and don't forget 2001, that was another story.
Yes.
I felt it was like I had to give my name. I mean, nobody could go through those doors unless they, quote, were invited. So once I got into the waiting room, by that time I was in tears because I felt that I was a person that was going to ask for their services, of getting a way to get out of a country. I just transposed myself, and I was like insoluble for a few minutes. I was so thankful for that organization to help them. All right, so this is Robert's friend, Freddie Zeidel, who I found on the computer by way of his brother, whose last name was spelt differently. So there was another moment. I pushed a button, and his brother said, "My brother's been looking for you for 20 years. I found him in 2000, and he filled in many, many gaps of Robert's life." And this is my son, Sam. He was stationed in South Korea, which is another reason he came, because it was very close. This is the little lady, and this was my roommate. Yeah. Little house. And you might say this is from rags to riches, a little bit. It was Father's Day, and I hired a limo to take us to a diner in LA.
Very nice.
And I made the kids and everybody get dressed in black and white. And they listened.
And they listen. Good.
And we have a lot of this stuff. I have a couple of videos that we made prior to Robert's passing, and I'm so thankful that we have the videos.
Yes. No, that's wonderful.
And I'm thankful for everybody who listened today.
Yes. Yes. Do we have any questions for Faith in the waning moments here?
Yes. Or can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Jay.
Actually, it's not a question. I've heard your basic story 3 times now, I think. And each time I've come to the conclusion that, Faith, I think you're one of the world's great detectives. For you to piece this together the way you had to do it is really amazing.
Yes.
I amazed myself, frankly. I was on a road, and I didn't let the roadblocks get in the way.
There wouldn't be the story if you hadn't done it. It's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. It's good to see you guys.
And I was able to share with his sister also, who didn't know a lot of his life there either. So it was a half sister he didn't know about for 12 years. It's like, who else is around that we don't know about? Very dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
But ours wasn't. So.
Oh, that's family in general. I mean,
yeah.
My family was dysfunctional, but anyway, any other
look
questions?
Where you are.
Well, I was, I was raised Irish and English, so we were always kind of rebelling against each other, or and then drinking afterwards. So, but I want to thank Faith Goldman, our guest, and Faith. This is a wonderful story, and thank you so much for sharing your journey and your detective mission and your process with us. Faith, you want to give your email address again? I think if anyone has questions for you, I can.
I'll tell you what I'm looking for specifically. I want to find a group of maybe high school kids that are Japanese and/or Chinese, and since the relationship with the Jews was positive, they don't know anything about what happened during that war. They know nothing.
No.
And it's a good education, and probably their families didn't talk about it just like anybody else, but it is a part of history. And so I'm interested to find, a group. I've done some talking to a Chinese church group, and they were like, their eyes almost fell out of their head. They were just, why didn't my parents tell us? Well,
I might be able to email you an email address for a teacher. He's a poet and a teacher who teaches I don't know about Japanese American, but he teaches Chinese American students here in LA. So we might be able to do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because it's so great to spread the knowledge and the history.
And the good part that happened.
Well, is there anything you want to say, Faith, before we end the meeting?
Yeah, I'm looking for someone that can help me put this in a documentary type format and have it on PBS. Does anybody have any influence with PBS? Because they probably are the one area that, but I got to work on something other than a slide presentation.
I'm sure that somebody, based on the distribution of this video, which we're going to be putting on our Southwest Manuscripters YouTube channel, I'm sure that somebody will pick that up because it's quite an interesting story. I would love to see a PBS style documentary on television. That would be a great, wonderful, better than a lot of the shows that are on TV right now. So let's put it that way, and real. So Faith's email address is Faith NAMDLOG at AOL.com. Mine, if you need, the link or information about this meeting, proflambert23@gmail.com. And yeah, Arc Shanghai, the film. Yeah.
It's free. It's free. Yeah.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you, Faith Beckerman Goldman, for being our special guest speaker today. Jerry will be back with you next month. Thank you to Faith. Thank you to Barbara and Jay, Ginger, JP Van Gordon, Sharon, Janice, and everyone else who was here today to watch this presentation. And anyone who wants the chat log with the links, just email me or email Van. I can give you, I'll make those available for anyone who wants them. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Faith.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't speak Chinese, but I like Chinese food.
All right. Take care.
Good document.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Select the screen you want to share and then click share again.
Don't hate my choice.
Document share.